Again, thank you for joining. My name is Chris Sotiro. I am a policy and program coordinator with New Jersey Future. I oversee our mainstreaming green infrastructure program, where we work to encourage green, nature-based stormwater solutions as a climate resilient solution to stormwater management to help improve the quality of our waterways and to mitigate localized flooding. We recently partnered with the Watershed Institute and WSP USA to create the newly issued Enhanced Model Stormwater Management Plan for municipalities. We are really excited to walk you through this new resource and even more excited to see it start getting incorporated into local planning. So, quick agenda. For today, we're going to launch into a super quick poll to get a sense of who is here. We're going to give some background on how stormwater is impacting New Jersey, followed by a quick dive into how our state's regulatory environment is changing and what's being expected of municipalities, an explanation of what's in the enhanced plan and how it can be used. Then we'll leave some time at the end for some quick, frequently asked questions and a Q&A. So I'm going to launch into a quick poll here just to get a sense of who's joining us today. Got a lot of municipal and county employees, but a majority of us are not falling into any of these categories. So if you'd like, please go ahead and introduce yourself and your organization and what you do in the chat feature if you do not fall into any of these categories. And then for the second poll, we're going to be asking what kind of events you'd be interested in attending in the future. Okay, pretty even split here. We've got a lot of stormwater infrastructure funding, MS4 general flooding. So we will look to plan future webinars. So this is super helpful. Thank you guys for participating. Um, and now moving on. So throughout this webinar, you will come to understand the latest regulatory changes to the state's stormwater management rules. You will learn about stormwater management and flood mitigation strategies that your town can take to improve climate resilience and comply with new regulations. And you will explore how the enhanced municipal stormwater management plan can be used to advance projects identified in MS4 watershed improvement plans. So some quick introductions. Here's who you will be hearing from today. I already introduced myself. My name is Chris Sotiro. And you will also hear from Mike Pisauro, Policy Director at the Watershed Institute. And then we'll hear from Claire Hutchinson at WSP USA. And finally, a quick shout out to Jersey Waterworks for sponsoring this webinar. Jersey Waterworks is a collaborative effort of many diverse organizations and individuals working together for the common purpose of transforming New Jersey's water infrastructure. So, New Jersey Future, founded in 1987, New Jersey Future is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that promotes sensible growth, redevelopment, and infrastructure investments to foster vibrant cities and towns, protect natural lands and waterways, enhance transportation choices, provide access to safe, affordable, and aging-friendly neighborhoods, and fuel a strong economy. The organization does this through original research, innovative policy development, coalition building, advocacy, and hands-on strategic assistance. My program, MGI, the Mainstreaming Green Infrastructure Program, we work to advance green stormwater infrastructure practices throughout the state. Overdevelopment and traditional outdated gray infrastructure have not only made it increasingly difficult to manage the volume of stormwater, but they are also degrading source water quality. So therefore, we need to be encouraging nature-based solutions to effectively and sustainably manage stormwater while also delivering societal and economic benefits. So what specifically do we mean when we say green infrastructure? Well, according to the EPA, green stormwater infrastructure uses filtration, infiltration, and evapotranspiration to treat and soak up rainwater where it falls. It can deliver multiple environmental, social, and economic benefits beyond just stormwater management alone. That is according to the EPA. Is that webpage still up on their website? I'm not sure. Who knows these days? But more broadly, nature-based solutions use or mimic natural processes to enhance water availability, improve water quality, and reduce risks associated with water-related disasters and climate change. Green infrastructure can absorb, capture, and store stormwater in a decentralized manner or throughout your municipality to help alleviate excessive stormwater runoff that carries non-point source pollutants into freshwater bodies, things like fertilizers, pesticides, oil and grease from roads, sediment, microplastics from tires, and things like nitrogen and phosphorus. And when these types of pollutants enter into local lakes or local streams or local ponds and act as nutrients for bacteria, that's how harmful algal blooms form, right? So New Jersey's got this issue all throughout the state. Our beautiful Round Valley Reservoir just last summer was closed to recreation for most of the summer, as early as June, because of harmful algal blooms. And we're already kind of seeing a lot of shore town areas experiencing these things and shutting down areas to recreation, and closing things off to tourists and local residents, because of these environmental issues. So we really need to be doing more to manage stormwater. Now, stormwater in our region specifically is a growing problem. Our state and larger region have been experiencing heavier and more frequent rain events. And as we continue to develop, we have more pavement, more impervious surfaces, which leads to more stormwater, more frequent flash flooding, and also leads to other end results like street closures, property damage, sewer overflows, damaged infrastructure, and impaired waterways. In New Jersey, over 90% of our waterways are still considered impaired, and that's no coincidence. We are the most densely populated state, and with that comes pretty extensive development throughout every corner of the state that's not already protected by some environmental rules. So every single time a massive Walmart goes up with a massive parking lot the size of like 3 football fields, all of that impervious surface cover is inhibiting the land's ability to absorb rainwater into the soil. So enough of that development occurs throughout the state, combined with rising precipitation patterns caused by anthropogenic climate change. You're left with some very, very serious problems. So in New Jersey, according to a Federal Reserve Bank report, over 500,000 households are at serious risk of flooding, which equates to about 1.2 million residents. Similar research conducted by Rebuild by Design found that a lot of these households are in shore town areas like Cape May, which also generate a very large amount of property tax revenue for the state of New Jersey. So if enough of those households start flooding routinely, enough people are being displaced and move out. We're losing a lot of economic value as well. Annual precipitation in New Jersey is expected to increase by 4 to 11% each year by 2050. Or not each year, but broadly up until 2050, according to the DEP. And freshwater wildlife populations have fallen by 85% since 1970 for monitored populations. Once upon a time, I was a New Jersey Watershed ambassador, and we would go into freshwater streams and rivers and collect these tiny little aquatic insects called macroinvertebrates, which are biological indicators of water quality. You could determine what level of pollution is present in the stream by what types of species you find. And to put that into perspective, the populations of those tiny little aquatic insects are declining. They've been declining since 1970, since we've been monitoring them. And if enough of those species die off, then you don't have enough food for other local creatures like birds and fish and whatnot. And the whole ecosystem kind of starts to decline if you are losing these freshwater wildlife groups. So we've got some very serious problems in New Jersey that we really need to address, and a lot of it starts with approaching stormwater. So the way that stormwater management is treated in New Jersey, it comes on a few different levels through the New Jersey Stormwater Management Rules at 7:8. There are a couple different requirements here, but the ones that we're focusing on today are the Municipal Stormwater Management Plan and the Stormwater Control Ordinance and the enforcement mechanisms that municipalities are required to enact these types of programs. So generally in New Jersey, there we go. Stormwater management has been changing quite a bit since its inception in the state. Land use and stormwater management has changed quite a bit over time as well. As the state developed, the natural hydrology of our watersheds has altered. So with all of that development that we've seen in the past couple of decades with suburban sprawl, the process of infiltration is reduced when we replace these natural features like wetlands, meadows, forests with large areas of impervious surfaces. This leads to problems like the pollution of our waterways, increased flooding, and reduced groundwater recharge, which can produce droughts and lengthen droughts. And the state's stormwater management rules are administered by the NJDEP. These rules require new developments of a certain size to manage stormwater. When they were introduced in 1983, however, they had very little consideration for water quality or groundwater recharge and really didn't gain much teeth until 2004. These rules were again revised in 2020 to require all applicable projects to implement green stormwater infrastructure. So that was a major win. That was the first time that green infrastructure was required in any types of developments. The rules were revised again in 2023 to require that the latest climate science is used when designing new systems. So this was the inland flood protection rule that we're going to get into a little bit more down the line in this presentation. And stormwater management is also required through the state's MS4 permit or municipal separate storm sewer system permit. That permit has requirements for all municipalities of any size in the state to administer a stormwater management program to manage pollutants entering our waterways. This permit is revised every 5 years, with the latest update coming in 2023. Some very significant changes have been made. All municipalities must map their existing stormwater infrastructure, and before the end of the 5-year permit cycle, they are required to identify projects to implement to improve water quality and reduce flooding. So this may consist of quite a bit of green infrastructure or retrofits. And by the end of the permit's 5-year cycle, every town in New Jersey must develop these watershed improvement plans, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So all this to say, what you have now in the Garden State is a situation where we are highly built out, highly developed, some might say overdeveloped, and a lot of that development occurred prior to these relatively new requirements for green infrastructure and climate change considerations. So to keep communities safe, we really need to make sure that we're having these conversations about what climate impacts could look like and how development should be structured around that. And part of the way that we've been trying to address this is through the creation of what is called an enhanced model stormwater control ordinance. So New Jersey Future and the Watershed Institute both developed separate enhanced ordinances, which achieve the goals of helping municipalities redefine the threshold for major development, adding in a definition and requirements for minor development, requiring stormwater management on redevelopment projects, not just new developments, requiring infiltration of a specific volume of stormwater on site, and reducing maximum contributory drainage areas. These are actions that go above and beyond the DEP's minimum requirements for what's expected of a municipality. And they can also be used if your town chooses to adopt an enhanced ordinance that makes you more eligible for sustainable Jersey points, which can be leveraged for increased competitiveness for grant funding applications for your town. So that was a project from a couple years ago. And instead of doing things separately, we decided this time to partner with the Watershed Institute and WSP USA to create an enhanced model stormwater management plan for municipalities, which we will get into in depth a little bit later on. But for now, we are going to jump into Mike Pisauro's presentation, who will be discussing a little bit about the regulatory impacts that have been changing throughout New Jersey and how that's going to change stormwater management. So take it away, Mike, and just let me know when you'd like the slides to be changed.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. So thank you all. Again, my name is Mike Pisauro. I'm the Policy Director for the Watershed Institute. We are a watershed association with local and statewide reach and activities. Next slide. So I'm going to talk about two things, basically over the umbrella of the New Jersey Protecting Against Climate Threats. That was an executive order issued by the governor in February of 2020, directing DEP to look at all of its land use regulations and to update them to include climate change. So there were two aspects to it: the inland flood protection rules that were proposed and adopted a couple years ago, and then resilient environments and landscapes, which was proposed last August 5th, I believe it was. And we're waiting, and actually there may be news coming out today about that. All right. And just to put all this in perspective, as I said, the rules were proposed. The real rules were proposed on August 5th. The picture you see in the center there is from 6 to 8 inches of rain that fell on August 6th in just over an hour, and just overwhelmed the local streets here in Hopewell Township and Pennington in Mercer County, and the resulting flooding. All right, next slide. So one of the things I always sort of start off with is water quality. As Chris mentioned, most of New Jersey's waters aren't healthy enough, do not meet standards because of too much pollution. And a majority of that pollution nowadays is because of how we manage land. And I always go back to sort of the beginning, the foundation, the Clean Water Act, which was passed by Congress in 1972, which said a couple things. One, we're going to restore and maintain the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of our nation's waters. We're going to stop discharging pollution by 1985, and we're going to actually reach the interim goal of water quality that is healthy enough for wildlife and fish and recreation by 1983. I highlighted those dates in red because it's now 2025 and we haven't met those goals. And the graphic in there is just a snapshot, a snippet of the Integrated Water Quality Assessment Report from 2022. So that report that DEP looks at water quality every 2 years, and water is not healthy enough. Most of monitored waters are not meeting standards. So we have a long way of going to meet those goals of the 80s. Next slide. So, I mean, that's sort of the legal hook of why we care about water quality, but also flooding. So the inland flood protection rules, which were adopted in, I believe, 2022, did a handful of things, but one of the biggest things is up until the inland flood protection rules, we were designing our stormwater system. So the basins, the rain gardens, the bioretention, everything based upon the 2, 10, and 100-year storm. And those are regulatory concepts, how much rain we're going to get over a 24-hour period. The 100-year storm is really a storm that has a 1% chance of occurring every year. The 2-year storm is one that has a 50-50 chance, every year. And we had, until the inland flood protection rules, been saying these are 3.3 inches or 8.17 inches. And that was based upon 106 years worth of data that we stopped collecting in 1999. So we were designing throughout the 2000s and the beginning of 2020 for storms that no longer existed. We were undersizing these basins, these stormwater management systems, because we stopped updating the data, stopped updating the regulations. So the inland flood protection rules did two very big things. One is update to today, or basically 2020. And it's, those rules say we now have to design for today. So instead of 3.3 inches, and it seems like a little, picayune, but we're doing it for 3.333 inches. Instead of 1.7 inches, we're now designing for almost 8.5 inches just for today. And also the inland flood protection rule says, we know what we build today is going to continue to exist for decades to come. And we know because of climate change, we can no longer rely on history. Things are changing very, very rapidly. We can no longer design for a static period of time. We have to design for the future. So it also said not only do you have to design our stormwater systems for today, but you also have to design them for the future. So instead of 3.3 inches, we're designing as well for 3.8 inches. Instead of that 8.5, we're designing for 11.11, so that the size and the structure and how these things release are going to be changed so that we can control and reduce flooding in the future. And there's charts in the rules saying, depending which county you are, what those numbers are. And those numbers I have here is for Mercer County. All right, next slide. The other thing it did is say our floodplains, so our flood hazard areas, have also been very, very static. And because of increased precipitation and increased development, those floodplains, those regulatory areas that we are supposed to stay out of, have changed. And so the chart or the graph in the upper left, I stole from one of the DEP's presentations, where we are now adding 3 feet of elevation to that 100-year floodplain that FEMA has delineated. Again, based upon very outdated mapping and information. So when we apply for permits at DEP, or when we look at applications at our municipality, we're now adding 3 feet of elevation to our floodplain, and what was once outside of the floodplain is now in. And the map on the right is just showing. So what is in blue was that FEMA 100-year floodplain. The yellow, or that sort of beigeish color, is that increased 3 feet of elevation. So places that were never at risk of flooding theoretically are now very much in that risk. And so that should change how we think about things, how we design things, and how we zone our land use codes, trying to keep people out of harm's way. All right, next slide. And as I mentioned, so the inland flood protection was sort of the first down payment on Governor Murphy's Executive Order 100. The second was proposed last year, the Resilient Environments and Landscapes rule, which had a lot of updates, but also had some additional stormwater updates. Next slide. And so a couple of the big things. So the way we deal with stormwater management now, if you've ever been to a planning board meeting, you deal with, excuse me, quantity, quality, and recharge. So we're supposed to reduce our total suspended solids by 80%, or the increase in total suspended solids by 80%. We're supposed to recharge And there's a couple of different ways to do it. And then we're supposed to do a quantity control. And when you and I think about quantity, we usually think about how much is running off. And in reality, the rules mostly apply to how fast a rate reduction. So we're supposed to be reducing the peak rate. The real rules now start to address volume. We're starting to control how much actually runs off our land. And so the real rules propose what they call a volumetric reduction standard. And, our enhanced ordinance in New Jersey Futures, I believe, calls it an on-site retention standard. Retain on-site 1.25 inches, which is a standard we've used for many years, the water quality design storm. Keep that on-site using green infrastructure, cisterns, things like that. Or if you can't do that, let's reduce the equivalent amount of impervious cover so that we don't actually increase, or we're starting to reduce the increase in volume. Those rules are supposed to be adopted by August 4th. I know there are changes coming, and we'll know more about that shortly. But this is super important, so we actually start to control flooding. It has been in our enhanced ordinance for several years, and again, New Jersey Future has an on-site retention standard as well. Ours has been a little bit higher than 1.25, but the concept's the same. We can't protect downstream communities until we start reducing the volume of water coming off our sites. Next slide, please, Chris. The other thing, much of New Jersey developed before we had stormwater management, which started coming out in 1982 or 83. Modern stormwater, as Chris mentioned, came out in 2004 and then updated with the Green Infrastructure Rule. So the way redevelopment sites have been dealt with in the past, the rules would technically say you don't have to do any water quality treatment until you have a new 1/4 acre of motor vehicle surfaces. That's how the rule currently exists. You don't also have to deal with quantity or recharge. And, technically you do, but you only have to match what was there. So if your site was 90, 100% impervious cover, you just have to match the rates and recharge of the existing site. You don't have anything, you don't have anything. The real rules will say for water quality, regardless of whether you're creating new motor vehicle surfaces, you still have to address water quality. You still have to remove 80% of the increase in total suspended solids, or unless you're discharging into a C1, a category 1 stream, then it's 95. You still have to do removal of nutrients to the maximum extent practicable, or MEP. And even for redevelopment sites, you still have to do the volumetric reduction standard. So we're now starting to chip away at flooding and water quality issues from historic sites, legacy sites, as we redevelop, as we invest in our communities. So this is a big change, very important, not enough, but it is a good start. Next slide, please. And then like the hazard mitigation plans and master planning updates for climate change, stormwater has to be updated to anticipate climate change. So when these rules are adopted, it will tell towns, as you update your stormwater management plans, incorporate climate change impacts. How do we make our stormwater systems more resilient to address climate change? How do we deal with sea level rise, increased flooding, increased rainfall? What can municipalities do to address those impacts? So think about it. If I have an outfall on a river, which because of climate change or sea level rise that outfall is going to be underwater, what do I do differently? How do I deal with my existing system so I can accommodate that increased rainfall and other things? So one of the things we think is, well, we should have enhanced stormwater ordinances so we can start to address those things. But again, this is depending on the adoption of the real rules. Changes are coming, and so the implementation deadlines are going to be changing. And that literally is happening any moment now. And we'll know more in the next 24 hours or so. All right, next slide.
All
Oh,
right. Yeah, I'll take over for the next few slides.
all right.
But hi everyone. As previously mentioned, I am a planner with WSP. WSP was given the opportunity to partner with NJ Future and the Watershed Institute to develop the enhanced model municipal stormwater management plan that Chris mentioned at the onset of the presentation. This is a tool that is meant to be helpful with the changing regulatory environment regarding stormwater regulations in New Jersey. But just like the slight background, these have been coming up all this entire presentation thus far, but the New Jersey stormwater management rules are in the Administrative Code 7.8. There are 6 main sections. Section 4 relates to municipal stormwater management planning and describes stormwater management planning at the municipal level. Next slide. I'm also quickly going to mention the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law. The Municipal Land Use Law establishes the governmental and legal structure for municipal planning, requires municipalities to develop and adopt master plans. The key reason why I'm mentioning this today is because in 2021, New Jersey adopted Senate Bill number 2607 to amend the Municipal Land Use Law to require that municipalities include a climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment in the land use element of master plans. This climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment must analyze current and future threats to and the vulnerabilities of the municipality associated with climate change. Master plans and municipal stormwater management plans are both intended to be updated on a 10-year basis, and they're intended to be updated around the same time. All right, next slide. So we have put together a new enhanced model municipal stormwater management plan. This is intended to provide municipalities with an outline of what to put together when they are updating their municipal stormwater management plan during their next update. This plan, what I've highlighted in purple on this slide are the new sections in this plan, which reflect regulatory changes since the Green Stormwater Infrastructure Rule, the Inland Flood Protection Rule. This plan also includes some recommended elements that reflect recommendations in the real rules, although, as mentioned, they have not been adopted yet. So the model plan clearly articulates recommendations which are relevant to the real rules that at this point would be optional for municipalities to opt into. But the plan is structured with an introduction section, which includes a review of these new stormwater rules that Chris and Mike were presenting on. Then a discussion about stormwater and how climate change and stormwater are related. And then there is a new section, the climate resiliency assessment section. I should have mentioned this earlier, but this model tool, this model plan, is an update to the model plan developed by NJDEP back in 2004. That model plan did not mention climate change once. So what this model plan does is incorporates the concept of climate change and how stormwater regulations can also help with climate resiliency and adaptation. And then the other, next slide. So the one new component of the municipal stormwater management plan that will be new as of the real rules is this climate change resilience strategy element. Per the real rules, the climate resilience strategy must evaluate the impact of climate change on stormwater management. Like Mike said, do you have a stormwater outfall that's below water? Do you have facilities that are at risk of flooding or sea level rise? So identify areas and infrastructure vulnerable to flooding and or sea level rise, and the element must recommend measures such as green infrastructure to reduce the climate impacts and maintain the capacity of stormwater conveyance systems, flagging that most municipalities will be able to use the climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment component of their master plans as a basis for the climate resilience strategy in the municipal stormwater management plan. No need to redo the same thing twice, so that CCRHVA should and probably can be used as the basis for this new climate change resilience strategy element that is more focused on stormwater infrastructure. Next slide. The key improvements of this enhanced model over the 2004 version, this model now addresses climate change. It prioritizes green infrastructure best management practices in accordance with the green infrastructure rule that was effective as of 2021. It includes recommendations for how to update municipal stormwater management plans to comply with the inland flood protection rule, which was effective as of 2023, including new sample design and performance standards. It also incorporates new definitions and elements to comply with the proposed REAL rules, which includes that new climate resiliency assessment element and redefines major development, as Mike mentioned earlier. And then next slide. Another element that we were tasked with was developing a stormwater best management practices decision matrix. This is just intended to be another helpful tool for municipalities and developers when determining what stormwater BMPs are most appropriate for different sites based on different types of land use. So it is intended to help developers and whoever is reviewing permits determine appropriate BMPs for a site. And the matrix includes green infrastructure, non-green infrastructure, and non-structural strategies to reduce stormwater quantity and improve on-site retention and improve stormwater quality. And then next slide. So this is a screenshot of part of the matrix. It was too big to fit fully on one slide, but it just shows that the dark red indicates a strategy that is not appropriate for that site. The pink shows a strategy that is likely not appropriate, but might be in circumstances. Similarly, dark green shows a strategy that is appropriate. Light green is a strategy that may be appropriate. As shown, a lot of these are the pink or the light green because, as many planners, developers know, different sites have very different conditions. That means certain BMPs will or will not be relevant depending on the slope, the sites, the parcel size, the zoning, different criteria. But this is just intended to help flag certain strategies that may be relevant given the site's land use. And then next slide. And back to Mike to talk more about the MS4 permit.
Great. Thank you very much, Claire. So as Chris mentioned earlier on, DEP has the Municipal Separate Storm Source System Permit, MS4, for sanity's sake. And one of the things the MS4 permit did in 2023 when it was updated was to include this thing called the Watershed Improvement Plan. And the Watershed Improvement Plan was because we had too many waters that were impaired. And the Clean Water Act tells us we have to unimpair them and fix them. So what DEP did was this Watershed Improvement Plan, which ultimately comes out to how do we reduce water pollution and meet standards for those waters that are impaired, for those waters that are impaired and have a total maximum daily load, which is sort of a plan that was developed by DEP to reduce pollution by a certain amount so that those waters meet standards, and also to reduce flooding. The legal hook or the requirement is because of the Clean Water Act and the need to restore waters. Reducing flooding is, the really good reason why municipalities should buy in and do this. And those plans are developed over the 5-year permit in 3 stages. The inventory, what do you have? Where is it? Where is it going? that is due at the end of this year. The assessment report. What is your plan to meet water quality standards? What is your plan to improve water quality and reduce flooding? And then the final watershed improvement plan report is sort of, you finalize that draft plan and submit it to DEP. And so a couple thoughts we have with this is, all right, so we have to reduce flooding. We have to do improvement in water quality. As towns are updating their stormwater management plan, what can the towns do proactively? What can they do and incorporate in their plan to meet these goals? If all we do is build, plan and build projects, we've lost an opportunity through our stormwater control ordinance and other policies to improve water quality as we have investments in our community. So think about, as you are going through your improvement plan, as you are updating your stormwater management plan, how do I reduce that sort of hurdle that towns are going to have to do proactively as we invest in our communities and get development applications? Is it an enhanced stormwater control ordinance? Is it better zoning? Is it a better stream corridor ordinance? Or things like that will reduce the lift that these watershed improvement plans are going to have to do. And so I think that is, it would be a mistake for municipalities to think I'm going to build a bunch of projects to improve water quality without also looking at enhancements we can do in our plan. And so that's sort of why it's here, to sort of start to think about that. So these things aren't separate and apart. They're a holistic look. How can we reinforce each thing and get a better product, a better result, and actually reduce flooding and improve our communities? So that's that. And then I'll just put a quick plug in. We have a thought that each town would have to develop these plans, 565 plans for each municipality. We should be doing these on a region, watershed base, not individual town by town by town with plans that don't necessarily interact with each other or are consistent, to do those on a regional approach. So talk to your neighbors as you are developing these plans, maybe join with those towns to develop one plan for the watershed versus independent plans that aren't consistent with each other. All right, Chris, I think next slide. I think that is it, and questions.
So we've got some frequently asked questions here that we've received from parties interested about using the plan and how it connects with other elements. So I'm just going to help lead this discussion, and Mike or Claire, you can either take a shot at answering these. So first up, do the new stormwater standards apply to sites with redevelopment plans?
Yeah, Mike, do you want me to go?
All right. So very well can be. So redevelopment plans, and this is the big R, where you negotiate with a developer and you have an area designated as in need of redevelopment. You can certainly negotiate with a redeveloper to do better. You can't negotiate to do worse than the DEP standards. And again, going back to the concept that municipalities have to develop watershed improvement plans, identify projects to improve water quality and reduce flooding that they are going to build and implement in the future. Again, I think it would be silly not to take opportunities as we are redeveloping our communities to do better when that investment is being made. Because these updates, these improvements are going to have to be made at some point. Why not take it as we are redeveloping? If you have a site that was built in the 50s with no stormwater management, I think you should be implementing it as we are redeveloping that site instead of trying to figure out somewhere else to do it. So I think you should and can. And I think overall it would be more beneficial to the community and to the development to do it now.
And a quick addition to what Mike pointed out, but if the site with the redevelopment plan qualifies as a major development, then the regulations would apply as well. So if depending on your definition and your municipality's definition of major project.
Okay. So second, when is the new MS4 supporting documentation required?
All right, so I touched on it, but the watershed inventory report is due at the end of this year. So, what stormwater management systems do you have? Where are they interconnected? Where are they discharging? And a bunch of other information that is due at the end of this year. All the towns should have been working on the last 2.5 years to get to it. The draft plan to reduce water pollution and reduce flooding is due at the end of December of 2026. And the final plan is due in December of 2027, with projects to be implemented sometime in the future.
Lastly, when do municipal stormwater management plans need to be updated with these new rules?
Municipal stormwater management plans are intended to be updated every 10 years on the similar cycle as your municipal master plan. So the intention would be that when you go into your next update, you would update the plan to be compliant with the new regulations.
And then
let me just clarify one thing. So, when the real rules are adopted, and towns will then have a certain period of time after adoption to update their stormwater control ordinances to include the on-site retention standard or the redevelopment standards. That would be a good time to update your stormwater management plan as well, so that your plan is consistent with your stormwater control ordinances. But yeah.
Thank you. And then if we have any questions from the audience on how to interpret these plans or how to incorporate them with existing projects or other requirements, please throw some questions in the chat. You don't have to unmute yourself or raise your hand. The chat works fine. But I did see previously we had a question on is there an editable Word document version of the municipal stormwater management plan? We will be sending out both the PDF and the Word document copies of the plan to anyone who attended the webinar today or registered, along with the recording for the webinar in a follow-up email. So be on the lookout for that. But if there are no questions for our presenters, I think we can go ahead and end early and give you guys some 10 minutes back. So thank you all for joining us this morning. Thank you to our co-presenters, Mike and Claire. Once again, this webinar has been recorded and we will upload to our YouTube channel on YouTube at NJ Future or New Jersey Future. We will send it out to everyone who registered today and all of our mailing list contacts for the webinar. Feel free to join our mailing list and check out the enhanced model stormwater management plan and a bunch of other resources on retrofits, MS4s, and our enhanced ordinances at gitoolkit.njfuture.org. Ooh, looks like we do have a couple other questions. The real rules, it was mentioned, the incorporation of the stormwater management plans on redevelopment. How about new developments?
Yep. So the on-site retention standard, the climate resiliency, all have to be done, whether it's redevelopment or new development. The redevelopment only the changes water quality where wasn't necessarily done beforehand.
And then, do you anticipate having to update the model plan based on the final adoption of the rules? So we do not expect any major changes to be made to the stormwater management rules specifically, hopefully, with the formal adoption of the PACT REAL rules. But regardless, the the stormwater management plan, the enhanced plan, is written to account for the anticipated changes. And even if those changes are not fully adopted in the real rules, the purpose of the enhanced plan is to go above and beyond the state's minimum requirements. So there would be nothing preventing you from uh, using the plan regardless. The DEP will be releasing a model stormwater management plan to comply with the bare necessities of what the real updates change. This is an enhanced version specifically for towns that are looking to have some more stringent regulations around stormwater. A couple other questions. How do the new rules impact public projects such as local roadways? I guess you're referring to the NJ PACT REAL rules.
So the real rules, as they were proposed, had certain pathways that if the road project had met certain milestones before the rules were adopted, they were legacied under the old rules. Um, So, if you had done your environmental impact statement, you had your designs, and were technically complete at DEP. All of those things might qualify as being legacied and not under the new rules, under the existing rules at the time. It is yet to be seen what these changes may be that may impact that.
And then we've got a question about if a commercial building does a retrofit for energy efficiency or renewable energy, would they then also need to follow rules around resiliency slash stormwater, et cetera? So not necessarily a redevelopment, just to switch out of antiquated HVAC equipment.
All right, I'll take that. No, and there's a lot of misinformation being circulated on the real rules as they were proposed. The real rules specifically excluded, weatherization, new roofs, kitchen remodels, things of that from complying with the elevation requirements. It would not at all trigger the redevelopment standards under the NJAC 7:8 stormwater rules at all. That kind of redevelopment would be more, I'm knocking the building down and I'm building something new.
So last question. You mentioned changes related to minor developments, a definition of minor development and requirements for stormwater for minor developments. Where would we find these? These are all within the scope of the enhanced stormwater management plan. We also included these for our enhanced ordinances, which are available both on the New Jersey Future website and the Watershed Institute's website. So if these are new requirements for the enhanced plan that go a little bit above and beyond what exactly the state would require. So if you want to, I'll put the QR code back up on the screen just in case anybody wants to scan it one last time. But reading through the plan, you can see all the details around what a minor development would be considered, and what changes would be required as a result of that designation. And I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. We're coming up on time here, so I think this would be a good place to end it. If you would like to ask us any follow-up questions, you can find our contact info in the follow-up email. And like I said, we'll be sending out the recording. And please feel free to check out the enhanced plan and refer it to any of your local officials that would be in charge of stormwater. And thank you again for attending today. Please feel free to keep in touch with all of us and have a nice rest of your day.